All right, well, good morning, everyone. Open up your Bibles this morning to Mark chapter 8. We're going to look at verses 34 through 38. Mark chapter 8, verses 34 through 38. Starting in verse 34. And calling the crowd to him with his disciples, he said to them, "If anyone would come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. For whoever would save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake and the gospel's will save it. For what does it profit a man to gain the whole world and forfeit his soul? For what can a man give in return for his soul? For whoever is ashamed of me and of my words in this adulterous and sinful generation, of him will the Son of Man also be ashamed when he comes in the glory of his Father with the holy angels." Would you pray with me? Father, we thank you for this time in our service and in our week where we get to open your word together and we get to study Jesus, his life, and his teachings. Father, I ask that as we look at this text this morning, this is a particularly challenging text. I ask that you would open our hearts, open our minds to the truth of your word, that you would convict us, Father, where we are falling short, and that you would help us to live out the truth of your word today. And it's in Jesus' name I pray. Amen. This is a kind of a tough passage of Scripture. And I will be very honest that I have wrestled with this text all week long. Most of the time when I sit down and I write out my outline or my manuscript or whatever it is I end up bringing up to the pulpit with me, I'm usually pretty set about it. I don't scratch out a lot of things. I don't make a lot of changes. But right up until this morning, I was sitting there reading this text, praying about it, and scribbling notes on my sermon outline because this is a difficult text. And so as we walk through this morning, even though it is familiar and the words in this passage are very familiar to us, don't let that shadow how hard of a text this is for us to work through this morning. This text is a lot about self-denial, denying self to follow Jesus. And as I was trying to think of some examples of self-denial, I think a lot of times we have a pretty low view of self-denial, or things that we think of denying self are really not that big of a deal. I like Sonic. I don't know about any of you, but I think Sonic is a wonderful restaurant chain. And especially during the afternoon from, 2 to 4? Yeah, you guys know what I'm talking about. 2 to 4. Happy hour, right? I know some of you have wrestled with this as well. You're in town, and you roll up to Sonic, and it's about 3 o'clock, and you're thinking, do I get the Route 44 Cherry Vanilla Dr. Pepper? I really don't need the Route 44 Cherry Vanilla Dr. Pepper. That's like 4,000 calories, and it'll probably take a year off of your life. And so you sit there and you think about it, the Route 44. Well, I won't, maybe if I don't ask for easy ice and just get, the regular ice, and it'll be okay. And then, no, I'm trying to lose weight, I'm trying to maintain some fitness here. So you sacrifice. You deny self a little bit here, and you get the 32 ounce instead of the Route 44, Instead of 4,000 calories, it's 3,000. So you sacrifice, you deny self. But let's be honest about what's going on in this text. When Jesus is talking about denying self, it is a much, much bigger thing than those little areas in our life where we go, oh, well, it's really not in my best interest. It's not really good for my health to get the double bacon cheeseburger at Wendy's, so I'm going to get a chicken salad. That's not what we're talking about here. This is a huge thing in this text. And overshadowing all of this, overshadowing the entire text and the rest of Mark, is what we talked about last week. You remember what is happening now? Jesus is on the way. Look back just into verse 27 in chapter 8. And Jesus went on with his disciples to the villages of Caesarea Philippi, and on the way he asked his disciples, "Who do people say that I am?" Do you remember what Jesus is on the way to? He's on the way to the cross. From this point on in his ministry, everything he is doing, every step that he is taking, every ministry location he is at is one step closer to the cross. And so that is overshadowing all of this here. And so that puts a special sense of urgency onto this text. So let's look at verse 34. And calling the crowd to him with his disciples, he said to them, "If anyone would come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me." Now we're going to discover really quick why this is such a hard text. Before this, in the passage we looked at last week, Jesus had called his disciples to him, and he had asked them the question, "Who do you say that I am?" Peter confesses Jesus is the Christ. And then, of course, Peter messes up and gets rebuked. But now, Jesus expands things a little bit. This is not just given to the disciples. Who else is it given to? He gives it to the crowd. So we're not really allowed any wiggle room in this. Some people would like to say, well, this is not something that necessarily applies to all Christians at all times. It was just maybe something given to the disciples. In their context, maybe they were just supposed to be the ones who were to follow Jesus like this. But look who he gives this teaching to. It's not just to the disciples. It's not just to the 12, but it's to the entire crowd. Think about who would be in this crowd. There would have been fishermen, farmers, business owners, just normal, average people. And Jesus looks out at them and he tells them, if anyone, any of those people in the crowd would come after me, let him deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me. So there's no wiggle room in this passage for us to try and find an out on it. It's for everyone, for all Christians. So what is he actually talking about here? What makes this such a difficult passage for us to grasp onto, for us to follow, for us to incorporate into our lives day by day? The cold, hard fact? What is Jesus calling his followers to do here? He's saying, come follow me, come and die. You can't sugarcoat that. Now, we try to sometimes. Maybe you've used this phrase. I probably have. Well, I've got a strong-willed child. That's just my cross to bear. You ever said something like that? Liam's not a strong-willed child. Or you show up at a restaurant and they're out of your favorite food and you go, oh, well, this is just my cross to bear today. I mean, really? I think we're kind of cheapening this text when we say stuff like that. Because what Jesus is saying is that these little inconveniences in our lives, those aren't a cross to bear. He is calling people to come and die here, to a radical denial of self in following him. It's not something simple. It's not something easy. It's not just having to get chicken when you wanted beef. It's a very big deal. And why is this such a hard thing for us? Do you find a lot of segments of society today that are talking about denying yourself? You really don't. I like in the fall, like many of you, the fall brings football season. I know some of you are already looking forward to it. Me, I've always been more of an NFL guy. That's kind of anathema in these parts, but I've always been more of an NFL guy. Just because I've moved around so much throughout my life, I never got attached to any one college team. So after church on a Sunday afternoon, go over, have a sandwich, and watch a football game. And what are 70% of the commercials you'll see during a football game? Beer commercials, right? Beer commercials. And what happens in almost every one of these commercials? You have some young guy with a bunch of his friends eating food, watching TV, and everybody's happy and everything looks great, and it's all about yourself. You want to eat this food, you want to drink this drink, you want to have these friends, you want to watch this show, and then you'll be happy, and then you'll be fulfilled, right? That's what you're sold all the time when you watch TV. I got to thinking about an institution that should be the exact opposite of this. The military. When you think of denying self, you might think of a Medal of Honor winner or something in the military. Somebody who went above and beyond the call of duty, risked their life, maybe even gave their life for a friend, for a comrade. Do you ever watch the recruiting commercials for the Army? You know what the recruiting commercial was back when I was in high school and thinking about joining the Army? Be all that you can be. Be all that you can be. That one is kind of iffy, but the next one was even worse. You guys remember what the one after that was? An army of one. Now let me tell you something. I don't know if that got anybody to enlist in the Army or not, but when they got to basic training, they were in for a huge surprise. Because the very first thing that happens when you get off the bus, you get to basic training, you finish in processing, and you get to your company that's going to be your warm, welcoming, cuddly home for the next 10 weeks. You don't believe me? The next thing that happens is you get assigned a battle buddy. Now, my battle buddy and I slept on the top bunk, he slept on the bottom bunk, and we did not go anywhere unless we were together. And if one of us had to go somewhere without the other, we always told the other guy where we were going. You always had someone with you. There is no such thing as an army of one. And the very first things you start getting drilled into you when you're there in basic training is that it's not about you. If you're just out there trying to look out for yourself, then you're going to get somebody hurt. You've got to look out for the guy in front of you, to your left, to your right, and who's behind you. And they've got to know that you're doing the same for them. And yet, what does the Army do to try to get people to fill their ranks? It's all about self-fulfillment and feeling good about yourself and having an adventure, right? That's what the commercials say. But that's not what it's about in real life. As soon as you get into the real Army, you find out that they're teaching you about self-denial, looking out for your buddy. And it's not just about you. And that's the line that we're fed all throughout our culture. It's not just in the beer commercials. It's not just in recruiting commercials for the Army. You turn on the TV and there are advertisements, commercials telling you what you need to be cool, what you need to be important, telling you to drive a certain type of vehicle. We're told that we need to use a certain type of phone, need to have certain types of gadgets. We're told we should pour everything that we have into our jobs if we want to feel fulfilled. We're told we should pour everything that we have into our families if we want to feel fulfilled. And it's all about us and our personal fulfillment and feeling good about ourselves. And yet, what does Jesus call his followers to do in Scripture? I'll read it again. If anyone would come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. I mean, I'll be perfectly honest with you. I want to be loved, popular, and respected, and comfortable. I want those things. But Jesus certainly does not make any guarantees that in our lives we are going to be loved and popular, respected, comfortable. In fact, turn back to Matthew chapter 5, the Sermon on the Mount, and see what Jesus says about who is blessed. Matthew 5, verses 11 and 12. Jesus says, "Blessed are you when others revile you and persecute you and utter all kinds of evil against you falsely on my account. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward is great in heaven, for so they persecuted the prophets who were before you." That's not a commercial you're going to find on TV. Blessed are you when others revile you, persecute you, utter all kinds of evil against you falsely on my account. Rejoice, Jesus says, and be glad, for your reward is great in heaven, for so they persecuted the prophets who were before you. This is truly a countercultural teaching that Jesus is making. If it was countercultural then, it sure is now. We are a very self-centered culture, where from the time we were very little until the time we're old, we're taught to look out for ourselves, live our lives for our own glory, and even as Christians, this is something that we wrestle with. And if we think we don't, then we're fooling ourselves. Every day, denying ourselves is a battle. Are there any positive examples out there of people who deny themselves? There are. Just about a month ago, there was a chaplain in the Army. I don't know if any of you read about this. It didn't make a lot of news stories. A chaplain in the Army during the Korean War. He was awarded a posthumous Medal of Honor. This is especially a big deal for chaplains because chaplains are non-combatants. And I want to read you a little bit about Chaplain Capon. He's a guy who is right here from Kansas, and he was awarded the posthumous Medal of Honor. And here is why he was awarded that. November 1st and 2nd, 1950. On November 1st, as Chinese Communist forces viciously attacked friendly elements, Chaplain Capon calmly walked through withering enemy fire in order to provide comfort and medical aid to his comrades and rescue friendly wounded from no man's land. Though the Americans successfully repelled the enemy assault, they found themselves surrounded. Facing annihilation, the able-bodied men were ordered to evacuate. However, Chaplain Capon, fully aware of his certain capture, elected to stay behind with the wounded. After the enemy succeeded in breaking through the defense in the early morning hours of November 2nd, Chaplain Capon continually made rounds as hand-to-hand combat ensued. As Chinese Communist forces approached the American position, Chaplain Capon noticed an injured Chinese officer amongst the wounded and convinced him to negotiate the safe surrender of the American forces. Shortly after his capture, Chaplain Capon, with complete disregard for his personal safety and unwavering resolve, bravely pushed aside an enemy soldier preparing to execute Sergeant First Class Herbert Miller. Not only did Chaplain Capon's gallantry save the life of Sergeant Miller, but also his unparalleled courage and leadership inspired all those present, including those who might have otherwise fled in panic, to remain and fight the enemy until captured. What's not included is the rest of his story. He didn't die there in that battle, but as a prisoner of war, he continually put others' needs before himself, sacrificing his food, attempting to gather food and resources and lobby for resources for prisoners of war, and ultimately he became sick and died in a POW camp. And now, just back in April, was awarded the Medal of Honor because of his extreme denial of self in serving others. The denial of self that Jesus calls us to is indeed extreme. He says that what it looks like is to take up the cross and follow him. As if denying yourself isn't hard enough, Jesus now says, take up your cross and follow me. This would have been something extremely difficult for Jesus' audience to grasp, because they knew the cross a lot better than we do. A lot of times our picture of the cross is a piece of jewelry or some smooth wood at the front of a sanctuary. That's our picture of a cross. But these folks who Jesus was teaching, many of them had probably witnessed crucifixions because they were frequent and they were public and they were put out specifically where people would see them. It's meant to be a deterrent, that how horrific and how painful a crucifixion was, it would keep people from rebelling and disobeying the laws of the Roman Empire. And so as Jesus tells these people, you want to follow me, you've got to deny yourself, you've got to take up this brutal tool of execution and come after me. Imagine being in that crowd in that moment as they think back to the crucifixions that they have seen, the brutality of them. And now here's this teacher telling them, to be my disciple, you've got to be willing to bear the cross. And there's really no way to sugarcoat that. Jesus is saying, you want to follow me? Then you've got to be willing to lay your life aside. That is what it means to take up the cross. There was no taking up the cross and then, carrying it a couple miles and then putting it down and going, okay, I'm done. No, it's a call to come and die. Jesus doesn't pull any punches, does he? He does not sugarcoat what it means to be his disciple. He doesn't sell them a bill of goods and say, hey, if all you want to do is avoid some eternal condemnation, come follow me, and then I'm going to take care of you for the rest of your days, and everything's going to be good and peachy and fine. He says to follow me is going to be difficult. It means denying yourself. It means being willing to lay aside your life. That's a hard teaching, is it not? This is something that we have to wrestle with and struggle with as Christians. We cannot get past a passage like this. Our struggle, my struggle, just for the most part, we want to live happy, comfortable, prosperous lives. We want to be fulfilled. To make these kind of sacrifices that Jesus calls us to is a difficult and challenging thing. It requires us to put aside our own needs, our own wants, our own desires, our own dreams, and follow him wherever he leads us, no matter the cost. Now, sometimes you'll read a passage like that and you'll sit there and you'll go, okay, that's all well and good, but Jesus hasn't called me to a foreign mission field. He hasn't called me anywhere exotic. He's called me and planted me in South Central Kansas, on a farm, on a small business, in a school, wherever it is, as a retired person. This is where you're at. This still applies. It's not just for the missionaries or the ministers, it's for all of us as Christians. And it's about the condition of our heart. Remember what just happened in this passage? Peter's confession of Jesus. Jesus asks, "Who do you say that I am?" Peter answered him, "You are the Christ." Do you remember what that means? You are the Lord, the Messiah, the Anointed One. You have absolute authority and sovereignty over everything and every aspect of my life. It's all God's. My life is His. My job is His. My family is His. My possessions are His. Everything belongs to Him. And so Jesus says, it all belongs to me anyway. Deny yourself, take up your cross, and follow me. So, is it worth it? That's the question. That's a question a lot of us ask. That's a question a lot of people would ask if they're not Christians and they read this passage. Is it worth it to deny yourself, to put aside personal gain and fulfillment, and follow Jesus? Jesus tells us why it's worth it. Look at verse 35. For whoever would save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake in the Gospels will save it. For what does it profit a man to gain the whole world and forfeit his soul? For what can a man give in return for his soul? For whoever is ashamed of me and of my words in this adulterous and sinful generation, of him will the Son of Man also be ashamed when he comes in the glory of his Father with the holy angels. Why is it a worthwhile thing to put aside your personal fulfillment, joy even in this life, to follow Jesus? Why is that a worthwhile thing to do? Because all the things of this life that we try to cling to so tightly, that we place so much value on, that we draw so much meaning from, will any of them last? Jesus makes a comparison here. He says, you can have the things of the world, the fulfillment, the pleasures of the world, and they will fade, and they will die, and they will turn to dust. Or you can have me, and you can have your soul, which is eternal. Now, if you're think about that in terms of investment, that's a pretty good investment, don't you think? You can have something over here that's going to crumble and turn to dust and die, or you can have Jesus, who is eternal. Yes, you might have to sacrifice and deny yourself in this life, which doesn't last forever. Those things that the world tells you you need that don't last forever. Or you can commit to Jesus and being His disciple, and that does last forever. One of the things that I wrestled with this week is that, there's no real happy face you can put on a message like this, is there? There's no way to put a happy face on denying yourself. There's no way to put a happy face on the idea of taking up a cross, a tool of execution, and following Jesus. There's no way to put a happy face on that. But there is encouragement here. As we read this text and we wrestle with what it means, and we shine the bright light of Scripture on our lives, and we see those things where we maybe have not committed ourselves completely to the Lordship of Jesus. There's things that we're holding back, where we're not ready to deny ourselves. There's encouragement here. Jesus says, deny yourself, take up the cross, and follow me. He doesn't say you're going to walk this path alone. He's already walked the path. In fact, He gives this teaching to a crowd of people, to the disciples in a crowd. To think that you have to wrestle with this alone is wrong. Look around you at the people sitting in front of you and behind you and beside you in the pew. These are the people who are walking on this journey with you, who are endeavoring to be disciples of Jesus with you. You do not have to wrestle with this and attempt to bear this burden alone. This is why we are a part of a community of faith, a body of believers. This is not something that you can try and do by yourself. First and most importantly, Jesus has walked the path and borne the heaviest burden, which was our sin and our guilt. And the people around you are walking this path as disciples of Jesus as well. In one of the great works of literature, at least in my opinion, of the 20th century, The Lord of the Rings, It's a story about some unlikely heroes. And one of the things that is so striking about the story is that not one of them could have accomplished their mission on their own. The mission was to take a ring, which is the embodiment of evil. Nothing good came of this ring, and destroy it. And everything evil in the world wants to get that ring back. And there's just a small handful of people in the beginning who are striving to get that ring to the one place where it could be destroyed. At one point in the story, Frodo, the little hobbit whose duty it was to bear that ring, attempts to take off by himself. He doesn't want to burden his friends anymore. He doesn't want them to have to follow him into certain death. And so he takes off on his own. He gets in a boat, heads off onto a lake. And he intends to leave all of his friends behind and attempt to bear the burden of that evil himself. But another hobbit, his gardener named Sam, won't let him leave. Despite not being able to swim, he chases after the boat into the water, nearly drowning, and jumps into the boat with Frodo, and they continue on their journey. Now I want to show you a video clip from the end of the final movie of The Lord of the Rings. Frodo and Sam have come to the end of their journey, and they don't know if they can make it the rest of the way. And I want you to understand why it is so important that you do not try and wrestle with these teachings in isolation. That you look to the people around you, you look to the support of your church, of your Sunday school class, of your friends and your family who are Christians to help you and hold you up, because these are hard teachings. And the encouragement that I give you, the admonition that I give you is don't try and walk through it alone. Remember that Jesus blazed the trail, and remember that the people around you today are doing the same thing and wrestling with the same thing. So let's watch that video clip.
Do you remember the Shire, Mr. Furlong? It'll be spring soon. The orchards will be in blossom. And the birds will be nesting in the hazel thicket. And they'll be sowing the summer barley in the lower fields. And eating the first of the strawberries with cream. Do you remember the taste of strawberries?
Oh, Sam, I can't recall the taste of food. No, the sound of water. The touch of grass. I'm naked in the dark. There's nothing, no veil between me and the way of fire. I can see him with my waking eyes.
Then let us be rid of it. Once and for all. Come on, Mr. Frodo. I can't carry it for you. But I can carry you. Come on!
If you haven't read those books, you should read them. If you haven't seen the movies, you should watch them. There are a lot of elements in there drawn from Christianity. To try and walk this path, to deny yourself, take up your cross and follow Jesus, to try and do that and wrestle with that on your own is folly. You will fail. But you have to remember, church, the most important thing, Jesus walked the path first. He bore our sin. And now we follow Jesus, and we have all these people around us walking that path as well. So as you think about this text, as you think about those areas in your life, as you pray that the Holy Spirit would reveal places where you need to do better at denying yourself, and you discover that this is indeed a difficult and hard teaching, and one where you will not arrive and you will wrestle with it your entire life, take encouragement in the people around you who are wrestling with this as well. Look to the people who have walked the path ahead of you, those who are more mature in their faith, who have lived life and have faced difficulty and hardship that you might not have faced, and learn from them. This is a hard text, but it is a hard text, church, that we face together and that we endeavor to live out together through the accountability and friendship of our fellow church members and Christians and the power of the Holy Spirit. So this is a hard text, and when you walk out of here, it might be hard to walk out with a big smiley face on. But that's okay, because this is one that we need to wrestle with. And you can be encouraged in knowing that those people sitting around you are wrestling with it too, and that they will pray for you, and that they will lift you up, and that they will support you and help you when things get hard. Would you pray with me? Father, I thank you for the hard texts of Scripture. This teaching demands so much of us. Demands that we put aside our preferences, our desires, our dreams, our goals, and follow you. It demands that the thing that motivates us in life not be our own gratification, but your glory. And Father, this is a hard thing. Lord, I ask that as we go from this place and as we wrestle with this text, that you would keep it close to our hearts, that you would remind us of it continually as we go throughout our lives, to deny ourselves, to take up our cross, and to follow Jesus. It's in Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Would you stand with me? We're going to have a time of response now, and like I said, this is a challenging text. And if you would like me to pray with you about anything, I'd be happy to pray with you. If you just want to come forward and pray, if you'd like to talk to me about membership, or you don't know much about Jesus and you want to know more about him, I'd be glad to visit with you.